Do you ever go to someone's house, like let's say an older relative, and notice that they just have oodles of old books adorning their shelves? Now, do you think they've read all of them, or do you think they're just using them as decorations? And if they have read all of them, do you think they're going to read them again? I assume that would be the reason to hold on to them, right? So you have access to that media whenever you want it? Or is it maybe like a perceived value thing?
I paid $30 for this book. That means it's still worth $30.
Like all things collectible, there are definitely some old books that are worth shitloads of money, but your average book probably isn't. Based on what I see at thrift stores, I'm quite the opposite, especially these days. So what's the point of having it? Are you considered a book collector? Is it just sentimental to you? Like, at what point is it considered a collection instead of just hoarding? I've been a retro game collector for like 15 years, mainly NES games, but I dabble in some others as well. I got some Super Nintendo, Genesis and stuff. Like a lot of us insane people that collect old shit, my collection started as, alright, I'm just gonna rebuy the games I had as a kid. Then it turned into, maybe I'll get some of those classics that I never had, like Metroid and Kid Icarus. And then it turned into, these are only $2 a piece at a thrift store. I might as well just grab those. I've never heard of them, but it's, stuff to put on the shelf. And then I evolved and reached my final form, which looked like, okay, alright, so I can get this lot of games. It's 15 games. I can get it on eBay. It's $75. I already have 5 of them, but hey, if I'm just keeping Kirby's Adventure and Castlevania 3, that'll make the whole purchase worth it, right? I could then, maybe resell these 5 doubles that I already have, and then, maybe I can get $50 for those if I find the right buyer, that's a pretty good deal. And then, that'll make this lot only actually cost me $25. And then I can purchase another lot, and I can do the same thing. And it just keeps spiraling out of control until you have shelves full of games, and you decide to, hey, I might go for the full set. And then you do a little research into the full set, and some of these games are really expensive. Some of these are more than my car. Okay, all right, maybe not the full set. I'm going to go for as many as, the full set minus the super expensive ones. I'm never going to own stadium events. For anyone watching this who does not collect retro games, man, the good old days are gone. You just can't really do that with lots anymore, at least not as efficiently. Now everyone selling games, they know what they got, and you will be paying close to full price for each game in the lot. That's not a bad thing, mind you. People should get what they're worth, but I don't know. It used to be you could walk into any Goodwill and find a stack of NES games for $2 each. That's how I got my copy of Final Fantasy 15 years ago. You can't find anything at thrift stores anymore. Lots are generally never going to be a deal on eBay, and, the value of games has just skyrocketed. Now, a lot of old games are still very affordable, don't get me wrong, but there was just this huge spike in retro game prices, and I don't think it's going to come back down anytime soon. It's a hard hobby to hop into now unless you just have expendable income to burn. Back in the day, it was cheap and fun. Now it's more of a luxury, and you have to justify spending, sometimes way more money than a current brand new game. Looking at you, Bucky O'Hare, on my shelf that I paid almost $200 for. Buh. I currently have 232 NES games, and hey, I'm happy to say that I've played all of them at least once. Not beaten them, mind you, I'm not that much of a masochist, but I've at least plopped them into my console and gave them a go before they made their way onto my shelf. The sad reality is that for some of them, that's probably all the screen time they're ever going to get, at least while I own them. As dope as it is to own a copy of Sesame Street ABC, I don't see myself pulling that one off the shelf for a hot gaming sesh anytime in the near future. So, why even own it? What's the point of keeping this game if I'm probably never going to play it again? I'm not an archivist, I just like having a large collection to fill up my shelves. But at what point is it no longer a collection and instead just kind of falls into hoarder territory? I guess the real question is, what is a hoarder? Fucking thanks, Google. Very cool. Alright, according to the Mayo Clinic definition, hoarding disorder is an ongoing difficulty throwing away or parting with possessions because you believe that you need to save them. You may experience distress at the thought of getting rid of the items. You gradually keep or gather a huge number of items regardless of their actual value. Of course, after that, it dives more into like how hoarding creates cramped living environments and gives example of like sinks and stovetops being so piled with stuff that you can't use them anymore. And that's most certainly not how I live, but I would call that the difference between hoarding tendencies and a full-blown hoarding disorder. But that initial overview, I don't know, there might be something to that. What got me thinking about this video in the first place was one night I was laying in bed, watching a little TV before I pass out. Naturally, I was watching Hoarders, as you do, and it was doing that thing where it's just showing shots of all the shit piled up in this woman's house. I noticed something in one of the huge trash piles, just right there at the corner of the screen. That's a goddamn Atari Jaguar box. I said to my girlfriend, I was like, yo, if that's a complete in-box Atari Jaguar in that pile, that's actually worth a fair amount of money. She kind of laughed at me and was like, oh yeah? Just looks like a big old pile of trash to me. I mean, she's not wrong. And on all of these shows, it's the owner of the house being like, well, I can't get rid of my stuff. It's all worth money. And you think to yourself like, ma'am, you can't see your floor because it's covered in Go-Gurt tubes. Like, nothing in here is worth money anymore. Your house should probably be condemned because of all the rat feces and roaches. Yet, here I am, admiring a brick in this wall of trash because I know that there's some value to it. For the first time, I'm finding myself on the hoarder's side, at least about this one item, because I know it to be valuable. It helps me see how they have a perceived value of their hoard. Huh. Guys, look, I know that most collectors, myself included, are not compulsive hoarders. That shit was just a clickbait title that you fell for. Glad you're here. Hope you're enjoying yourself. I can see my floor. All of my gaming shit, for the most part, is organized on shelves for display instead of being all over the floor blocking walkways. But the mindset is kind of similar, right? Like, let's look at the definition. Let's break this down. Difficulty throwing away or parting with possessions because you believe you need to save them. Yeah, I don't want to get rid of my stuff that has tangible value and I like looking at it. It would be hard for me to get rid of this shit. Like, if not, I would have already sold it. Distress at the thought of getting rid of the items. Kinda? Like, it's a collection. I've amassed it over years and years of searching every thrift store, garage sales, online auctions, and, just going to straight up game stores, buying things for the full price. It's a little distressing to think of my collection just vanishing or being damaged. Like, I recently adopted a young rescue dog. She's fantastic for the most part, and, she hangs out in my game room with me a lot because that's where I spend a lot of my time. But like most young dogs, she has torn some shit up that she wasn't supposed to. I have absolutely considered her just like grabbing a game off my shelf and destroying it. It's just what pups do. But I would be fucking livid. It would absolutely cause me some distress. Gathering a huge number of items regardless of their actual value. Yeah, I mean, I suppose it depends on what you consider huge, but again, like 232 pieces of like 30 some odd year old plastic, that's not a small number. And that's not even including the bins of like my old Xbox 360 games and Wii games and other random collector shit that I just don't have on display. Going back to Sesame Street, even with the current inflated market price, it's still only worth about $5. It's not a game that would fly off the shelf if I decided to sell it, and I'm probably not going to play it, so it's just plastic and silicone sitting on a shelf because it's, quote-unquote, part of my collection. I have a lot of the original boxes my consoles came in stashed away in my closet. Anytime I move, I put them neatly back into their styrofoam so they won't get damaged. To me, there's a logical reason for keeping that cardboard, aside from just the monetary value that it has. But is a collector keeping valuable cardboard really all that different from hoarders keeping cardboard trash that blocks their walkways? To the uninformed about their value, these boxes would just look like trash. It's why complete in-game boxes are worth so much more. In that generation, most people just tossed the cardboard box that the game came in. Like, I don't know, it's like what you would do with a new toy. It makes sense. The cardboard's just the trash that your new game came in. And then that's not even considering like accessories too. My NES satellite that I have, it only holds 4 controllers, so that's the max number that I'm ever going to have a feasible use for. So do I really need 7 original NES controllers, 2 max controllers, and an NES Advantage? No, probably not. I've just ended up with these things from buying eBay lots and I never got around to selling them. I'm not just going to toss them. Someone could use them, and they have value, but do they really have value if they're just sitting on my shelf? I don't know. It just seems like such a thin line. When does it stop being collecting as a hobby, and when does it just turn into hoarding? I'm in multiple retro gaming and game collecting subreddits, and I see this discussion pop up every so often. It seems like with some level of frequency, I see people talking about ditching their physical collections in favor of just buying an EverDrive and loading it with ROMs. Now, I'm not going to discuss the legality or morality of ROMs. That's between you and the big N, baby. But, it makes sense. I could dump my own ROMs legally and plop them onto an EverDrive or, an Anbernic handheld, and I could just sell off my collection. I would still have access to the exact same library of games, but in a way more convenient way that takes up way less space. Man, especially now in 2025, even though the physical retro market is through the roof, retro games are more accessible than ever. Nintendo, drip feeds you a few every month if you have the Switch Online membership. Remasters and remakes come out constantly, even for games that I would consider more obscure, like Saga Frontier. And then emulator handhelds, they're cheap, they're everywhere. It's becoming way less practical to have these shelves full of games. I guess the big takeaway here is that I like owning physical media. I like having shelves full of games. Nintendo can take all those games away on the Switch at the flip of a switch. Steam could shut down and take my big-ass library with it. It's unlikely, but it's possible. A hard drive filled with my 100% legal backup ROMs, that could fail, and it could take the games with it. But, barring damage to the game, my physical copies will always be there, ready to be blown into and slapped into my console. Don't actually blow into the games. That's you're not supposed to do that. It's actually bad for it. I don't know. I'm torn on this. What do you guys think? Is collecting just an organized form of hoarding? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.